And good morning to you, meteorologist Joey Sovine here at the Live 5 Alert Desk with an update of the tropics as things have gotten very busy out in the open Atlantic, a spot that we usually reserve for late July and into August and September as the waves come off the coast of Africa. Usually that's the kind of time frame that we see the water warm enough to interact with those tropical waves and sustain those showers and storms enough to eventually become areas of low pressure and tropical systems. But this year, that Atlantic basin, what we call the main developmental region, or MDR, is running well above average for this time of the year. Temperature-wise, it's running about 4 to 5 degrees above average, and that's enough to get that water temperature up into the 80s, and that is enough to kind of hold together, strengthen these storms. And the end result is that we have Tropical Storm Bret right now that you can see on your screen, and also a brand new tropical depression in its wake. Now, they're headed two different directions. Let's start out with Bret. And right now, we're watching this as a very strong tropical storm nearing the Lesser Antilles. At 70 miles per hour, just one tick away, up to 75 miles per hour from the National Hurricane Center, as they do it in 5-mile-per-hour increments, for this to become a Category 1 hurricane. Now, what we're looking at is this moving to the west at close to 15 miles per hour. That puts Bret in the Lesser Antilles, at least part of the Lesser Antilles, as we go into tonight. Now, the strongest winds on the northern side, which means that this will most likely, as far as the islands to be impacted by this, will be St. Lucia and Martinique. Those islands will be feeling basically a strong tropical storm with wind gusts up to 70 to 75 miles per hour and some heavy rain. That will occur tonight. Hurricane watch is in effect for St. Lucia, just in case this strengthens a little bit before arriving there. But tropical storm warnings in effect for those islands. That is the most likely outcome. They will see the worst of the weather tonight. And then here we go. We'll take a look at the forecast track of Bret. And once it gets into the Caribbean, the atmosphere will become very hostile for this to kind of hang on. So the storms are going to be ripped apart. The center is going to be exposed, and eventually its demise will be felt south of Hispaniola as we go into the weekend. By Saturday night into Sunday, this thing should dissipate. So that's a non-concern, other than for obviously the interest in those islands that will be impacted. But when you're talking about a strong tropical storm, this isn't going to be a worst-case scenario by any stretch of the imagination for the folks there. They can handle that. Tropical depression number 4 behind it. So here's the second one. And we have more tropical waves coming off the coast of Africa we'll watch over the upcoming weeks. But Tropical Depression number 4 is brand new as of 5 o'clock this morning, and we are likely to see this upgraded to Tropical Storm Cindy at some point in time, either today or tomorrow, as it is battling some wind shear, but it should strengthen just enough to get it up to Tropical Storm status. So we'll likely have our third named storm out of this one right here where that L is on the map. So that's once again east and in the wake of Tropical Storm Bret. So moving to the west and northwest, this has a different path, as we mentioned at the very beginning here of this update. And you can see how this forecast track is not toward the Caribbean, but north of the Caribbean and north of the Lesser Antilles, most likely not to have any impacts on the Lesser Antilles, the Windward or Leeward Islands, but it is forecast to have some strengthening, once again become a tropical storm. And you may just intuitively extrapolate this out and say, what if this continued on that path and moved north and west? Well, we don't expect it to at this point in time. There's a lot of room between the end of that forecast cone and the coast here of South Carolina, and we have a pretty good setup in place to keep this storm. Notice over 1,000 miles by the end of day 5, which is Tuesday of next week, and it's still down to our west and northwest by over 1,000 miles. Here's the latest computer models on this. So the thinking is once it gets far enough to the west, to the north of Puerto Rico, we start to see that jog northward, so this is likely to turn out to sea. Could come close to Bermuda, but at that point it should be weakening quite substantially. So neither one of those of concern. Once again, we already had Arlene that was down the Gulf of Mexico weeks ago. We have Bret right now. Cindy is likely to develop over the next 24 hours out of Tropical Depression number 4. And we have a long ways to go in the season, but we're plowing through the numbers quickly already, running ahead of schedule. Don is the next name after Cindy, so hopefully we wait a little while before using that one. Don't forget, you can always get the latest on the tropics on live5news.com. Check out the Hurricane Center there, or by downloading the Live 5 First Alert weather app. We always keep you updated there as well. Thanks for joining us here at the Live 5 Alert Desk for an update of the tropics.